Hello, everyone, and welcome. And I'm so glad that you're here. And my daughter, Lily, is joining us today. And I am so excited to have her here. And thank you, Lily, for agreeing to come on here.
Of course.
I know. I love having her on here because she has so much wisdom to share. And we are going to be talking about today friendships, cliques, mean girls. How do you help your daughter to navigate that? And I think this is going to be really helpful for your daughters to maybe even listen to get some perspective based on Lily's experience. And I just want to launch in and say thank you. And also, tell them just a little bit about you and yeah, just tell them a little bit about you.
Yeah, so I am 21 years old, so I am a junior, going to be a senior in college, and I've really lived through it all, through middle school, high school, and have had a lot of friends through those years, lost a lot of friends, but also made a lot of really good friendships from day one that I still have to this day. So I'm really excited to be able to share with you all. I know you asked a lot of questions, and we're hopefully going to get through them and get to learn a little bit about how to navigate friendships.
Yes.
All ages.
Yep. And I'll be able to interject my experience with helping Lily navigate friendships and her older sister. So there's a 9-year gap there between Lily and her older sister. And I grew a lot in those 9 years and I handled it very differently. So I kind of have this unique perspective of like what not to do and what you can do as a mom to really help your daughter to navigate this rocky terrain, because it is rocky when you're going through the middle school years and the high school years, and how do you handle all of this? So I'm going to launch in and ask some questions. And like Lily mentioned, moms had submitted questions in our communities. I put out there, I'm interviewing Lily and I'm going to ask her about friendships and cliques and what questions would you like me to ask her? So these questions are based on what you submitted. So we're going to dig in. All right. So Lily, first question. Can you share a little bit about your struggle with friendships growing up, what that was like for you?
Yeah, so let's start in middle school. Okay. I went to a private Christian school up until 7th grade. So I was with just the same group of girls that I grew up with, when I was in kindergarten. So it was a small group, and that meant that I became friends with every single girl at some point. And I dropped a lot of friendships. So I would go through different girls and I would kind of see, oh, do I want to be their friend? And then I would be their friend for a little bit. And then, I would make friends with someone else. Like I kind of did that all throughout middle school. But through that, there was a lot of cliquiness. And I didn't really like cliquiness. I knew that day one. I was like, I don't like cliques. I don't like being controlled and have some girl that's kind of ruling over me. I didn't like that, but I definitely fell into that in middle school, where there was a girl that controlled my friend group. And
Queen Bee.
Yes. And she really just ran the entire group and wanted everyone to answer to her. And if she didn't like someone, or if they did something that she didn't enjoy, then she would tell all of us to exclude her. And that happened a lot. And it happened with me. I was one of the girls that was excluded. And at first, I don't really remember a lot of this, but she remembers. We were talking about it, and
I do.
There were times that I would, come back, get picked up from school, and I would be crying, upset that I was excluded. And you can share that one time that, how about you share the little story?
Well, I think it's really was interesting as we were preparing for this because I was sharing with Lily some of the specific situations that I remember, the mean girl, the bullies, and what they said to her, and her getting in the car and her crying, and she couldn't remember it. So I just want to say that it's really interesting to me. I still remember that, and I think it speaks to when our daughters are in pain and they're expressing it, our mama bear comes out. We feel very protective. It can stir up a lot of our own pain from our own childhood and when we were bullied and navigating that whole girl world. So I had a lot of stuff that was coming up for me when she was sharing what was happening to her. And we need to become aware of that so that we're not reacting out of that place. And that was one of the things that I learned in that 9-year gap between your sister being in middle school and getting picked on or bullied or left out of groups, and when I was parenting you. But I just want moms to know you don't remember it. And that's so interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, I remember mean comments that girls have made that really stuck with me a lot growing up when I struggled with learning and feeling lesser than because of that. I do remember, you know, those comments of
what was like a couple comments.
I don't remember the comments. I just remember there was talk about it, and I remember not knowing where a certain country was or something, and people laughing. Like I remember people laughing. It wasn't like, or like, oh, when you forgot that, you know, country, and that was really embarrassing.
So you remember you remember how it felt. So that particular, so to go back to your question, if it was a question, you were saying that day I picked you up from school, you were crying and you didn't remember it. And you were talking about these two girls that had left you out of the group. And they were mad at you and they weren't talking to you. And I remember saying, wow, that must have really hurt. And you were like, yes. And then you expressed a lot more. And then I said, what did you do? That must have, you know, been hard to know what to do. And you're like, you know, I did this and I did that. And then after I just listened and affirmed your hurt, you were like, oh, can we stop at McDonald's on the way home or whatever it was? And I'm like, sure. And so we stopped, and then it didn't get mentioned again, but I was still sitting with it. Like, oh my gosh, I want to go to the school and I want to get a hold of one of those girls. And, you know, I felt just like I wanted to tell her off. And the next day I picked you up at school and you got in the car and you're like, oh, we worked it out. We're friends again. And they were talking to me and I realized I wasn't being very nice to them and that they were mad at me. And so we resolved it and everything's all better. So you worked it out. Now, rewind to your sister, and I remember saying what's not helpful to say. She got in the car, she was crying, and I said to her, well, what did you do that caused that? And I blamed her, trying to get her to think of maybe what she had done. I didn't realize it at the time, but what did she do that caused it? And just shut down the whole conversation. And then she felt like something's wrong with me or I did something wrong versus just helping her to process through that. And then I catastrophized it. I just made it bigger than it needed to be in how I responded, which really was not helpful to her. Then she saw herself more as a victim, which isn't helpful. What advice so playing off of that whole victim thing, because we were going to talk about that, what advice would you give to a girl who is struggling to make friends?
Yeah, I think going back to the first question, so I talked a little bit about middle school and what my friendships were like in middle school, but I actually ended up transferring my 8th grade year to a public school in order to make friendships going into high school, because my private school, nobody was going to the high school that I was going to be going to. And so I had to really just start off fresh and make new friends. And that was hard in and of itself because there were so many different groups and they were already forming. So I totally get this. And if a girl were to come up and ask me, what advice do you have for me to make friends? I would say to find what you love to do, find what makes you happy. Like it could be acting, it could be playing a certain sport, it could be art, whatever it may be, find that. And then once you get involved in whatever it is that you want to get involved in, you'll find like-minded people that way. And also being really nice. I think just encouraging your daughter if she's struggling to just like talk to people, be open and be vulnerable if, not like too vulnerable, but share about yourself and be present, not scrolling through your phone all the time. And I think that's a big one, just being nice, smiling, and
being open and kind.
Yeah.
Right? Open.
Yes.
Yeah. You have a story about what it was like for you when you went into the new school and you went into the lunchroom and who to sit with. Can you share a little bit about your process through that whole thing and finding a friend group?
Yeah, I think I first started sitting with a girl that was in my homeroom, and I sat with them for a few weeks. I don't really remember. And I made other friends outside of that friend group, but I was solely sitting with them because it was just a girl in my homeroom and I knew her the most. And I realized I didn't really want to be in the friend group once I started to get to know them a little bit. Not that they were bad or anything. I just didn't really fit with them. So while I was sitting with them, I kind of started making new friends, saying, oh, do I like, their friend group, and I changed seats. I started sitting with another group of girls, and they weren't the nicest. There were like a few of them that were nice, but I didn't fully fit in with them. And I decided that I would make friends with all of the friend groups. So I had friends within all the different friend groups. I just didn't fully say I'm just friends with these certain girls because I didn't want to be friends with some of the girls because they weren't all nice. And I think that is good advice for a girl. Like, you don't have to be friends or like best friends with every single girl in that friend group. Like, you can be friends with all types of people. You don't have to be tied down to this specific friend group. And that really has been what my friendships have looked like all throughout my life. Like, I am friends with all different types of people, and I think that's really important because it makes you like a well-rounded human being if you can find different types of people yet find similarities. Like, you don't have to have this perfect friend. You can make friends with a bunch of different people, and they don't have to be exactly like you.
Yeah. You were saying, I wrote down a couple of notes so I wouldn't forget, but one of the things that you have said is taking time, like slowing down. And your sister said that if she could go back to middle school, she would have taken more time to pick her friends thoughtfully rather than just jumping into a group because she felt insecure.
Yeah, for sure. I think also developing friendships over time. I remember even starting in middle school when I went to the public middle school. I made friends in different friend groups, and it's funny because looking back, all of the girls I made friends with, we all became a friend group in high school, and before they were in different friend groups. So it really changes in middle school. It's not like, I know some girls that
Changes when you go into high school.
Yes, it changes when you go into high school. But I mean, there are some girls that literally have been friends since middle school and have been in the same friend group, but it's different. You know, you are not tied to a friend group, the same friend group, your entire life. It's going to change. So I have to say that too.
Well, so that might be a really good thing as a mom to say to our daughters when they're in middle school is, you know what, friendships take time. And it's okay that you haven't found your friend group right now.
Mm-hmm.
That, you know, just know that this is going to be a process. Take your time, get to know different girls. Because I remember you saying you moved from a lunch table to another lunch table, and the girls that you moved from the lunch table to the other lunch table, they were mad at you that you went to another lunch table. How did you navigate that?
I don't really recall that happening.
That's another thing I remember. I remember you coming home from school and saying, today I decided that the girls that I was sitting with, they gossiped a lot about each other behind each other's backs, and I didn't like that. So I decided to go sit with another group, and then those girls, they didn't like that I had moved away from their lunch table. They thought I was rejecting them. And so that's another interesting thing. I just remember thinking, wow, that you were courageous like that you thought, oh, I don't think they're being very nice. I'm going to move to another table. So you must have had like one friend in the other group that you decided to go sit with them.
Yeah.
How did you navigate that? I mean, you don't remember, but looking back, how do you think you probably navigated it?
I remember talking to Ella, and I was like, I don't really like who I'm sitting with. I just was honest with her. I was like, but I was like, I don't think I really get along with all of them. I would love to sit with you guys. I mean, she even offered it. She was like, you can sit with us. Like,
oh, that's so nice. So pull in another friend that you like and say, can I sit with you?
Yeah, I think just asking, nicely of, listen, I would love to like sit with your friends or hang out or do something, just like asking them and being open. A lot of times girls, admire that. And if you ask and they say, oh, I don't want to sit with you or say something mean, then at least you ask, and now you don't want to be their friend,
Yeah.
Now you know like where you stand with them.
Mm-hmm.
So it always helps to, instead of enduring like bad friendships.
One of the things that you said to me as we were talking about this is for girls to not take it personally and see it. You talked about the victim mindset, like not seeing it like something's wrong with them. Because I remember thinking that. I thought these girls are leaving me out. Something must be wrong with me. I must be weird that they don't want to sit. Bless you. Spring allergies.
Seriously.
That something must be wrong with me. But you're like, and then I did feel sorry for myself. And I think that really fed me not making friendships in middle school, because I felt like something's wrong with me. The girls are being mean to me. Then I would make that group of girls bad, that they weren't nice to me. And yeah, that was just not a good thing. So can you talk about how to stay out of that?
How to stay out of the victim mentality?
Yeah. When you think something's wrong with you. That was one of your comments you said, is not to take it like something's wrong with you. Mm-hmm. I just thought that was good. When if girls leave you, say, no, you can't sit with us, rather than saying, wow, they're leaving me out, they're being mean, mm-hmm. to say, oh, those are girls that I now know I don't want to be friends with them because they're not inclusive.
Yeah, I would say you have to have balance between that of not being a victim and not being like, oh, it's all their fault. Just being like, okay, it could be that we don't get along together. It's a two-way street of, in a relationship, say you like break up with them. It's like a mutual decision of, oh, we just didn't really get along well and it wasn't healthy, and that's okay. And there are more people out there. That's a closed door, and I can open a new door to a new friendship. So I think when you get in that mentality of, oh, something's wrong with me, you can say, okay, what can I do in order to be a good friend? What do when I think of a good friend, what does that look like? And fill in the blank and then be that. You know, if you are getting down on yourself, you can get stuck in that of, oh, it's all my fault, negative, but you can turn that negative into a positive and think, okay, let me just, really lean into what it looks like to be a good friend and show that.
I love that, Lily. That's so good. Like, I think for any of us, what can I do to be a good friend? What can I do to change whatever it is that needs changing? And that's very empowering. That's really different. I love it.
We can't change other people, even though we want to. The only thing that we are in control of is ourselves. So when we are in that victim mentality, we can only change ourselves. We can't, do anything about the other person.
That's really, really good. So next question. How can girls stay out of drama and gossip?
That's hard. I mean, we all fall into, drama and gossip. We watch The Bachelor and all of those.
It can be really yummy. We love
drama. We love gossip. But how do we stay out of it? Because with drama, with gossip, nothing good comes of it.
It's like eating junk. It's like eating a bag of Doritos or something. Well, I'm not supposed to say junk food because we're not going to make foods bad. I learned that from Charlotte Markey in the podcast. But it's just like, it tastes good going down, but then you don't feel very good afterwards.
Yes.
Yeah.
So my advice for staying out of drama is checking. So when say something bad happened at school and you are wanting to vent, right? And you're mad at your friend and you go to your mom and you're just really upset. Or you're going to a friend and you're going to talk about, the argument that you had with another friend, okay? So you go into that conversation, and when you're venting, kind of have to check your intentions behind that conversation. So am I sharing this information to make myself feel better and like take down that other person and kind of like
get them
back in a way, or am I doing it to process my feelings and talk about how I'm being affected, not how the person's affecting me? That makes sense. So it's good to vet and talk things out, but it shouldn't be directed at another person. And then another thing is, this is huge, and what I really had to work on is, if I'm saying this, do I want the other person to hear it? Whatever I'm saying about this one person, would I be okay if they were in the room hearing this?
Yeah.
And if they're not, then you probably shouldn't be saying it. So.
Words of wisdom. This is where I want to recommend, just insert this, Queen Bees and Wannabes by Rosalind Weissman is excellent to read yourself and share with your girls. And one of the things that struck me reading the book is that girls don't know, and we have to learn how to do it even as adults if we haven't learned how to do it when we're younger, is how to resolve conflict. And that a lot of gossip and a lot of drama is because we don't go to the person and share with them how we're upset about something directly.
Yes.
And so we gossip behind their back because we're hurt or we're angry, and we make them bad. And then the friend goes, yeah, they're awful. They're so bad that they did that. Versus being courageous and going and saying, hey, this happened, and that it hurt. I didn't like it. And then saying what you want instead. And learning how to manage, how to deal with conflict. That's really important for us to teach our girls and to model, rather than, because our girls say, if we're doing that, if we're talking behind a friend's back, If we're making somebody bad, our girls are going to pick that up.
Mm-hmm.
So what do we do with that energy? And can you think of a situation where you've had conflict with a friend, even older? Maybe you didn't know how to do that when you were younger, or maybe you did, where you said something to work through. Can you give like a little formula that you think that is helpful to give to the girls? Like, what do they do if something's happening and they hear that a girl's gossiping about them?
Well, you asked me I'm going to ask the first question. So how have I handled conflict in the past, and what does that look like for me? I've definitely improved over the years. I really try not to gossip. If I gossip, I really try and just check my intentions behind it. If something's going on with a friend, if I'm going to another person, I'm asking how they think I should handle it and how I should phrase, whatever I'm going to say to that other person. But in high school, I got in a really big blowout fight with one of my best friends. And that was just really difficult because we were like attached to the hip.
That was so painful for me. Just
Yes.
have to insert that. Oh,
Yes.
That was terrible.
But what I did, I definitely talked behind her back and stuff, but I went to her on text and I said, I can't be your friend anymore. I think we should take a break. Basically, like, it was a breakup, friendship breakup. And I texted her. Now, looking back, if I were to redo it, I would have said, hey, shot her a text or asked her in person of, hey, can we just take some time to talk after school? And because I have a few things that I just want to get off my chest. And then you meet and you say, instead of saying, this is everything that you've done to me, and saying, you, saying, I've been hurt because of X, Y, or Z. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to lose this friendship. So I want to just go to you and see, if we can do anything to, fix these issues that we've been having, and see what they have to say and listen to their side, and not make it like, all about what they've done wrong, but instead, how can we both love each other and care for each other well? And that.
Gosh, that is so good, Lily. And I think to encourage our girls to not communicate over text, and to be courageous, to text, let's talk about this, and to pick the time. That's another thing. The timing is really important. You don't do it while you're in the lunchroom with a bunch of girls around.
Yeah.
You say, let's pick a time and can we talk?
Right. Because I know so many girls will screenshot these texts and say, oh, she said this to me, and get other people involved. But when you meet in person, one, you can just have it be between, you and the other person, or more people. If more people are involved, you can also ask more people to join in this conflict resolution. And then two, it's honestly way better communicated, and it's more intentional and thoughtful when you do it in person. So if your daughter's asking, how do I handle this? Tell your daughter, I know it's scary, but I really believe that you should meet in person and talk about, the problems that you've been having.
And then I think it's important, if your daughter's open with you, to be able to role play it a little bit. Well, what can you say?
How can you take care of yourself?
Yeah, how can you take care of yourself? And to start with the I feel, because if you say you, it automatically is going to put the other person on the defense, and it's not going to go well.
So, when you're talking about your feelings, like, someone can't fight that. Someone can't say, oh, you can't feel sad. That you can say that, but no one wants to. It's like, oh no, like, you hurt my feelings. Like, ouch. That really hurt when you said X, Y, or Z.
And then give them a chance to respond.
Or versus saying you're just a really rude person and you are really annoying, or something, saying like you are blank, versus saying I am hurt because you said this, and it gives an example.
And usually to help our girls to think about, okay, they're angry, they're upset, but what else might they be feeling? Because the first emotion is usually anger, but underneath that there's hurt. And so what are we going to do with that hurt? Let me ask you the next question. Catherine asks, what do you do if your friend pulls away and chooses another clique? What would you say to that girl?
Thanks, Catherine, for asking that. That's a really good question. What would you do if your friend pulls away and joins another clique?
And like the mean girl clique. Or gets even, that happens a lot where you're friends with somebody. I hear that a lot from moms, and all of a sudden that friend goes to another group and leaves the girl behind, and she's just so hurt and she can't figure out like what happened. Here I had this really good friend, now she's not friends with me anymore, and she wants to go hang out with the popular girls, but now I'm not included. What would you tell that girl?
I would say that's hard, that's tricky, and definitely it's going to take processing. I think she could ask her friend and say, hey, I noticed that, you haven't been texting or reaching out to me as much. Like, is there, like, what's going on? Yeah, it's hard. That's hard.
Well, I think it is.
I think you could ask them and just, see, like, why, and kind of feel that out. But sometimes it's like, if some girl is walking out of your life, that kind of opens the door to other friendships too. It really sucks, but sometimes you can have space with a friend for a little bit, and then you realize that you miss that person and you reach back out to them. I think we go through seasons of wanting to be friends with different people, and it doesn't mean that the other person did anything wrong. I think it's just timing can be strange sometimes, and I know a lot of my friendships, we've gone through periods of time where we haven't really talked, but it doesn't mean that I've done anything wrong. It's just kind of like we're at a different stage, and then something happens, they get a boyfriend or something, and then I'm like, oh, I reach out to them and I see that you're doing X, Y, or Z, like that's so fun, I'm so happy for you, and then you reconnect again. It's crazy how that happens. I think that my best advice is to just not take it personally, to really just take your time to process it and not like lash out on that girl and say, why aren't you hanging out with me? Like, whatever, and say, they're so mean, all those girls that you're hanging out with, I don't like them. Kind of just like attacking them. I would be really just intentional to see if that person reaches back out to you. And yeah, there's not really a right answer because every situation is different, but I would just say take your time to not attack, to not go into this defensive, and make it time to reach out to new friends, because there's so many amazing people that you haven't met yet.
Well, and I think as a mom, it's really important for our girls when they're in that spot. It just rips your heart out to see them crying and feeling hurt and alone. And now their friend is taken up with other friends. And we want to fix it because it's really difficult to watch that happening. But to be more in, just meet them where they're at. Say, I can see this. I'm sorry. This really hurts. I can see that. I'm here for you, versus trying to get them over it or try to make them feel better. It does take some time. We don't want to dismiss it, but we also, and go make other friends right away. We also want to let them feel that hurt, which is painful to sit in that, but just show up, just be there, meet them where they're at in that pain and that hurt. And in time, it will get better. But we want to oftentimes hurry that up because it's just hard to watch our daughters hurting.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have anything to add to that?
I don't think so.
Okay. Sandra asked, what's the best way to tell my daughter how to deal with someone who's being mean? This is a good one. Like, how do you handle a bully? And there's a lot of information out there and different thoughts people have about how to handle a bully. Mm-hmm. But if there's a girl that's being mean and lashing out, have you ever had that happen?
Mm-hmm. I would say that girls are mostly mean, like can be really mean to their friends. It's not usually going to be someone that you're not really friends with. You know, it's usually going to be someone that's close to you where they feel like they have the authority to like throw you digs if they're mad at you. Usually a lot of times girls will throw digs out at their friends because they're secretly mad at them, or they have had a bad day and they're just like taking it out on their friend. I know that's happened to me a lot, especially in high school. I had a lot of friends who would make comments about me being like a dumb blonde, and that has really stuck with me, you know, throughout my entire life of trying to like prove myself in that way. And when that would happen, I would laugh, and because it would be a joke, and I would just kind of laugh with them. But now I would say how to handle it is to say, why did you say that? What made you say that to me? Because, I mean, if someone asked me that, say I said a mean comment to you, and you responded with, what made you say that? How would you respond to that?
I know, yeah.
Seriously.
It would catch you off guard.
Yeah, catch you off guard. What made you feel like you wanted to say, like, why are you saying that to me? Like, why? I think that's the biggest thing. Or if they're close friends, you also
put it back on them. That's like batting the ball back. Mm-hmm. I love that analogy of like, you don't have to take that and sit with it and laugh like because you're embarrassed, like, oh my gosh, I would get the same thing, and then I would be uncomfortable, so I would go but all the time it really hurt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's different. It's asking a question versus saying, you know, like, what the heck, you know? You could say what the heck sometimes, or like, ouch, like,
yeah,
hurt
ouch.
Me.
Yeah.
But I think asking a question really makes them think, oh, yeah, I guess what was my intention behind saying that? You know?
Yeah, and you're not making it about you and taking that in, you're putting it back on them.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, that's a good one, Lily. That's a good comeback. And it's not being mean either. It's like, what's going on?
Mm-hmm. Have a bad day?
Yeah.
Not have coffee?
You feeling insecure right now that you have to, pull me down?
Don't say that.
Yeah, no, don't say that. But I'm saying
yes.
That's what I would want to say to the mean girl. Anyway, yeah, don't say that. Okay. So what qualities does a good friend possess? And how can moms support their daughters to discern if their friends are good friends or not?
That's a good one. That's a real good one. Qualities. Okay, I'm going to first say qualities, and then I'm going to say, examples for those qualities. So I would say the first quality is a friend that's a good listener, and that is intentional. That is huge. I think it is really good to just be a friend that anyone would want to go to and be that safe space for them and not have to talk over them or really try to rule the conversation, but a friend that will just ask good questions, intentional questions of, I can't think of an example, but what's your favorite, food?
Cares about you.
Yeah.
That feels like they're interested in you.
Yeah. What's your favorite food? What's, your favorite movie? Like, what music do you like to listen to? And then once you get those answers, like bringing them their favorite snack, or saying, oh, let's watch your favorite movie tonight, or let's do this activity that you love to do because I want to be able to love it as well.
Oh, that's so, yeah. And girls aren't always going to have that maturity and in, middle school or high school.
I know some of my friends that would bring me my favorite coffee,
Yeah, that was very sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah. And did special things for your birthday.
Yeah.
But what I've also heard you saying is to be that for other people.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think a good friend is going to gossip about you?
Mm-mm.
No, because you were saying some of your friends did gossip. So I guess I'm thinking, does it automatically, if you have a friend in high school that gossips about you, are they automatically not a good friend? How can you tell the difference? Maybe they just don't know how to talk to you about conflict, but they're really not a bad friend. They're just underdeveloped in that area. So you know what I mean?
I mean, you really don't. So, like, no one really wants a friend that talks really poorly about them behind their back. Like, no one wants that.
I know.
But I wouldn't say it would makes the person a bad person. Like, I wouldn't label them as that. But I think that you don't want a friend that is going to negatively talk badly about you, because if they're doing that, then how are you going to be able to rely on them to keep secrets or keep, confidential information? Because you want a friend that you can confide in and be your safe space. So if they're talking badly about you, then how are you supposed to feel safe and secure? How are you supposed to be able to really share those parts of yourself to them if you can't trust them? Because once someone gossips about you, like, trust is lost. I mean, at least for me, I'm an 8 on the Enneagram. If you guys know Enneagrams, we're big on loyalty. And so if my friend is talking poorly behind me, I mean, I will address them and say, hey, so-and-so told me that, you're upset with me about this certain thing. Like, I would have loved if you would have come to me first. Like, next time when you're upset, I know it can be awkward, but I would love if you would just tell me so that I can correct that, or I can care for you in this certain way.
Yeah, I like that. Is it okay to say who the friend is that said that?
No, that was just an example.
Oh, okay. But maybe it's like, I heard, you don't have to name the other friend that told you. That told you the...
I can't, I don't know.
Oh, you were saying that so-and-so told me that you were talking about me. So, and I'm thinking that might cause a hornet's nest, because if you have a friend, let's say Mandy, that tells you that Dorothy was talking about you.
Weird names.
I know. And Mandy was my best friend growing up. So Mandy says, hey, Dorothy was talking about you, then you might be getting Mandy in trouble.
Okay, so you want an example?
Well, no, you were saying that this girl said this. And I'm like, ooh, can you do that? Because that might get messy if you say, maybe those are band names.
Oh, yeah, you don't want to throw the other person on the bus.
Yes, that's what I mean. Yeah, I just...
Okay, so what do you do if you don't want to throw someone under the bus?
Yeah.
Then you don't say so-and-so told me this. You can say, hey, have you been upset with me? I've noticed that you weren't talking to me as much, or that you said this certain comment and it was kind of passive-aggressive.
Yeah, that's good.
So instead of saying, oh, I've just noticed that you've been treating me a little differently. Did I do anything that hurt your feelings?
Good. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Two more questions, but I wanted to just interject one more thing. When you were saying that, I was thinking it's a pattern. If your friend, maybe you hear something, the first time you go to them, you work it through, that's one thing. But if it's continually happening, then this is not a good friend. So
yes.
It's where you can go to that person, you can really talk to them, and they're going to listen, you're going to listen, and you're going to work it through. Yeah, that's good. Okay.
So to summarize that, I would say a good listener, someone who's intentional, and that is just a safe space.
A safe space.
Yes.
That doesn't want to bring you down. That doesn't want to tear you down. Yes. That wants to build you up. That's so good, Lily. Two more questions. What would you say to the moms that are listening that this daughter is struggling? What would you say that is going to be helpful, and what would you say is not helpful? I touched on this a little bit myself, but if their daughter is in pain and is hurting and is struggling to make friends, what advice would you say to moms of how to handle this with their daughters? What
advice would I give to
Yeah,
them?
what advice would you give to them?
I would comfort your daughter and reassure her that she's going to meet so many people in her life, and that there are going to be so many people that are going to come in and out of her life and that are going to shape her who she's meant to be, and to just trust the process. And I would also just not look at the other friends and kind of say, oh, this girl is just a mean, terrible girl, like you're just so much better. Not to do that, but instead to say, you know, you are an amazing girl, and I know that you are, you know, you can be the best friend that you can be, and that's all you can do. You're only in control of yourself. These girls may treat you poorly, but that shouldn't keep you from shining your light and from, you know, beating to your own drum. Kind of.
Wow. Thanks, Lo. That's really helpful to moms. Yeah, don't try to jump in there and get on the phone and fix it all.
Yes.
Yeah. And lastly, to the girl that might be listening to this with her mom, what encouragement, and maybe it's the same, what encouragement would you want to give her if she's struggling right now with friendships?
Again, just trust the process. I think that there's such a beauty in friendships, and don't stay in a friendship that is tearing you down, because that's not what friendships are, you know, supposed to be for. We have like so many amazing chances in our lifetime to meet friends and to develop friendships, and it's awful to feel like you're stuck in a friendship. So if you're in a unhealthy friendship right now, like, let yourself step out and let yourself find people that encourage you and that love you and care for you. So yeah, that was a jumble of words, but I would just say, don't feel like you have to stay in a friendship. There's so many people that want to be your friend. Everyone wants a friend. So focus on just the qualities that I've said, just being a good listener, to being intentional and just smiling, asking good questions and all of that, and you will find people. Yeah. You know, you will find that friend that makes you have the time of your life, and that just, you can laugh together for hours. Like, you will find that. So
don't close your heart, is what I hear you saying too. Don't close up your heart. Believe that there are good friends out there for you, even if you're not experiencing that right now. Yeah, go out and shine your light. Well, thank you, Lily. Wasn't she awesome having you on? So you're so wise, and I'm so proud of you. And I know that just listening to you talk today, so it's really helpful to moms and helpful to the girls that are listening as well, on how to navigate these years when it can be challenging and tricky with friendships. So as girls develop and change and grow. So thank you so much. Welcome. Okay. Well, we'll see you later. And thank you, everyone, for listening and for spending this time with us. See you later.